in other off-grid areas. One among the many solutions that we have sought is the cooperation and the positive response from the Department of Justice. And just recently, the National Power Corporation was able to arrange and avail of the necessary financial assistance from one of our government financial institutions. And for the status on how they address this, maybe we will be enlightened in more details by the National Power Corporation. With regards naman po sa operations in the entirety of Mindoro, we have already conducted the performance audit and assessment. In 2017-2018, we did it in Oriental Mindoro, while in 2018-2019, we did it in Occidental Mindoro. We have already identified the different problems and challenges in the provision of electricity services, among which include the lack of supply. We have been encouraging the concerned distribution utilities, or OMECO and OMECO, to immediately conduct competitive selection process in the procurement of their supplies. However, we do understand that there were also challenges on their part in conducting the CSP. As such, based on their actual emergency requirement, we have accorded, particularly OMECO, several certificates of exemption in preparation for the procurement of their electricity supply prior to their actual conduct of competitive selection process. However, even after the conduct of competitive selection process, there were several concerns and challenges that they faced. In fact, specifically, as mentioned earlier by Honorable Tarriela, we did conduct a forum for Occidental Mindoro, wherein we have found several suggestions. One among which is, first, to address the fuel requirement. The National Electrification Administration provided OMECO a 50 million loan so that the operation of the lone power supplier in the island can continue its operation. However, there seems to be continuing problem in the finalization of the power supply agreement with such provider. While they were the sole provider in Occidental Mindoro, has won all the 3 lots in the competitive selection process, the entire capacity requirement is not yet delivered due to various problems. Now, with regards to OMECO, we have also approved the latest certificate of exemption in August for them to prepare for the conduct of competitive selection process. And the latest information we got is that the CSP for the 41 megawatt requirement of Oriental Mindoro has been issued by the National Electrification Administration of the notice to proceed for the conduct of the CSP. We are eyeing that the CSP for Oriental Mindoro will commence with its pre-bid conference by December 13, if I'm not mistaken. So on the part of the Department of Energy, these are the information that I wish to provide this honorable committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mario Marasigan, for that. Continuing, let us hear from the NEA, from the National Electrification Administration. Ms. Ruth Ramirez.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Actually, what our good ASEC Mario Marasigan has pronounced in has conveyed in this body, honorable body, we have also the same information at hand. So actually, for OMECO, there will be it has been conducted the publication of invitation to bid, and it is right that they will to commence the competitive selection process by December 13. And same is true with Omeco, the information of the 50 million loan was granted to the said electric cooperative for the procurement of power supply or to finance the fuel in order to for the OMCPC to supply the requirement of Omeco. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Nea. Proceeding, let us hear from the National Power Corporation. We have Attorney Melchor P. Ridulme.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the honorable members of the Committee on Energy. Yes, on the part of NPC, Mr. Chair, we would like to update the information that the Congress have about the financial capacity of National Power Corporation to pay the UCME to its NPPs. True, while we issued the communication last July that NPC would be in delay of payment because of the financial and the fuel crisis that beset us then, the situation is not as dire before as of today. Meaning, NPC, through the efforts of our board, mainly the DOE, the DOF, and the DBM, was able to get some relief from the national government, at least to augment and fill up the gap of those unpaid power bills that were pending with its finance department. In other words, Mr. Chair, NPC was able to pay and update this NPP, especially in Mindoro, their power bills as of August. So from the delays of payment of power bills from April to May, now we were able to update it up to August. While it's not as current as it is, but it's just few months or few weeks. So we don't really agree that the payment of the subsidy would be an excuse for the non-operation of these NPPs. We have basically explained before that the National Power Corporation is merely there as a last resort source of power. So we were able to continue the lease that was supposedly have ended last November. Luckily, the board was able to, we were able to convince our board to extend it until December only, because by 2023, we will have no budget for that and no more fuel allocation for that. So we are constantly coordinating with the stakeholders there, because we all know that they already have the NPPs, which should be the main source of their power. And while they have problems with their NPPs, I think their NPPs can also solve their own problem, not merely relying on the government. ERC have provided the guidance, and I think the continuous directive and monitoring of DOE will at least help solve the issue, hopefully before the end of the year. Now, on the financial situation of NPC, Mr. Chair, while it's true, it's not yet sufficient, it's not enough to have our billing payments to be current. We are still exercising continuous effort to source out additional funds, and one of which was already mentioned by our ASEC. The DOJ recently allowed us, through its opinion, to have other source of funding like borrowings, and we are now actually in negotiations with one government bank for a credit line, so as to augment the gap of the funding for the payments of our obligations. Hopefully, this will help us facilitate the payments of other suppliers, which has also been the excuse of the other NPPs. But as I've said, the unpaid NPP bills is not mainly due to insufficient payment. If they are not paid by NPC, there are other lacking documents that could be a reason for the non-payment. But basically, Mr. Chair, what we're saying is we've been almost current in our payments to the subsidies, and I think the NPPs can bear us out here. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Almost.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Melchor Dulme. So we'll reserve the questions until we finish with the resource persons. Before we continue, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Florida Rida P. Robles and Honorable Zia Alonto Adiong.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning. So proceeding, we have ERC via Zoom. Can we hear from Attorney Maria Adela Ching?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the members or the distinguished members of the Honorable Committee on Energy. So I'm Attorney Ching from the Energy Regulatory Commission, and I was also able to monitor all the other comments of our fellow resource speakers from the DOE, from the NEA, and from the National Power Corporation. And I can confirm these updates, especially when it was mentioned that there have been continuous efforts between the members of the energy family, particularly the DOE, the NPC, the NEA, and the ERC, in making sure or trying to find solutions for the whole island of Mindoro. And of course, the ERC is in support of the proposed bills, subject of today's meeting, and that is in line with our objective to secure affordable, reliable, and as well continuous supply of electric power in the said island of Mindoro. So, Your Honors, these efforts have been, as I've mentioned, continuous, and I think up to this point, we are in coordination, in close coordination with these agencies. But as far as the particular comments of the Commission with regard to the proposed bills are concerned, Your Honors, I would like to ask for a few more days to finalize our position or comments on these bills, and we commit to submit the same to the Honorable Commission within next week, perhaps. And this is to ensure that really we have a thorough and meticulous study of the issues concerned and possible solutions should it be necessary. But as far as the Commission is concerned, we are also fully committed to finding solutions for Mindoro. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you, Attorney Ching. Continuing, may we now hear from the Electric Cooperative, from Occidental Mindoro Electric Cooperative. I think Ms. Eleanor Costibilo is here. But before that, may I just acknowledge the presence of Honorable Wilter Y. Palma. Can we hear from Omeco? Ms. Eleanor Costibilo. Costibilo. I think Omeco is via Zoom. If they are not ready, can we hear from Ormeco first? Anyone from Ormeco?
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, sirs.
Oh, is this from Omeco?
Omeco po. Eleanor Costibolo.
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Good morning po sa inyo lahat. Ang problema po namin dahil sa hindi pagbabayad ng subsidy ng NAPOCOR sa aming supplier. So nagkaroon po kami ng problema. Pero ang isa pa pong malaking problema namin, yun pong penalty na binigay ng sabi humingi kami ng extension, hindi na sila nagbigay. Nagkaroon po kami ng penalty doon na ang 50% ng difference ng TCGR at saka SAGR, ang 50% po nun ay babayaran ng Omeco at hindi pwedeng i-kolekta, hindi pwedeng bayaran ng aming member consumers. Yun po dapat, yun pong subsidy na yun, dapat po 100% po collectible from na i-approve ng ERC. So doon po kami nagkakaproblema kasi ini-insist po sa amin ng supplier namin na hindi kayo nagbabayad ng penalty ninyo, so kami sila ang OMCPC na short din ng pera. Pero mali naman po yata yon, nasingilin na parusahan kami ng ERC na kami ang magbayad ng 50% ng penalty ng difference na yon na hindi naman namin pwedeng kolektahin sa tao. At kung sinasabi po ng ERC na dahil sa incompetence ng OMECO, track na po sila, sinabi po nila, successful ang aming CSP at nakakuha kami ng murang presyo. So,
I think, yes, I think they lost power in Occidental Mindoro. So, till they get back in the Zoom meeting, I guess let's proceed first with Ormeco. Ormeco, are you ready?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is again Ruth Ramirez.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I'm the acting project supervisor of Ormeco right now and was installed in Ormeco last September 28. So for Ormeco, actually the issue on load shedding is Ormeco's last resort when preventive maintenance activities are performed by an IPP or in the transmission and or distribution system. And another factor is that the supply from all IPPs is insufficient to sustain the demand while maintaining the integrity of the entire grid and ensuring that economic impacts are kept at a minimum level. Now, it is true that on June 2022, Ormeco implemented scheduled outages due to the inability of Power One Corporation or POC to supply an hourly average capacity of 9 megawatts for the entire duration of its contract until 2032. Now, POC limits its operation only to 1.4 megawatts. So instead of 9 megawatts due to uncontrollable increase in fuel prices and unrecovered delay in claims from the NPCU CME subsidy. Now, on July 2022, Ormeco filed an application for certificate of exemption through NEA endorsement to DOE. And that was also reported earlier by our good ASEC Marasigan. And also, on September 21, 2022, DOE issued the COE Certificate of Exemption allowing the negotiated procurement of the 22.3 megawatt requirement as emergency power for cooperation period from for 1 year, that is from August 5, 2022 to August 4, 2023. Now, this is the short-term solution. However, there is their long-term solution of an additional 41 megawatts to commence on June 2023. So there is a 41 megawatt additional capacity requirement, and the submission of the revised TOR was done last September 10, and issuance by NEA of the notice to proceed in the publication was dated November 7, 2022. So it is also true that there is a publication of invitation to bid last November 16, 2022. That was yesterday. So the mitigation actions, actually there was a downward trend na po dun sa may kanilang frequency ng power shortage at saka frequency ng brownouts and yung duration. From July until to present. Nag-normalize na po after July yung kanilang tinatawag na SIFI. Yan po yung frequency ng brownouts, and yung pong SIDI, ito po yung duration. So naging normal na po yung trend niya. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth Ramirez. Is Ormeco back online? Omeko, are you there? I think they're trying to get in.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Asan? Sir, walang nakuha?
Ma'am, you're online. Can you proceed?
Good morning po ulit. Wala pong na-pick up kanina.
Ma'am, yung hanggang ano lang, yung penalty nyo from ERC.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yung penalty nyo po from ERC.
Yung penalty po namin ng ERC, salamat po sa ERC kasi po na ano na nila yun, na-resolve na po yun. Sa parte po ng Omeco, ha? Hello?
Ma'am, a while ago you were saying that hindi po makatarungan yung penalty na binigay ng ERC.
Ah,
So
opo. Hindi po talaga makatarungan yun na i-penalize kami na magbayad ng 50% ng difference ng TCGR at saka ng SAGR. Ang laki po nun eh. Hindi po talaga kakayanin ng Omeco kasi non-profit naman po ang cooperative. At hindi po namin pwedeng singilin sa tao. So wala naman kaming pagkukunan nun. Parang gusto sabihin sa amin, magpakamatay na lang kayo. Mabankrupt na kayo. Na unfair po talaga yun. Pero, noong pong June 23, nagkaroon po ng Notice of Resolution ng ERC na nire-resolve po yung issue na yon. Na sinasabi na if you use your at wag na yung dating kontrata ng 2014 na mataas ang presyo, pwede kayong mag-avail ng subsidy. So meron pong ganong order ang ERC, meron po silang notice of resolution, meron na po silang order, meron na po silang clarifications. Sa amin po, klaro po yon. Ang problema po, yung supplier namin, sa lahat po ng orders ng ERC, parang wala pong katanggap-tanggap na order ang ERC sa kanila. Ang gusto klaro, kasi sa Omeco po, klaro. Pero sa supplier namin, hindi klaro. So, baka naman po pwedeng linawan pa ng ERC kung ano man yung gusto nilang marinig. So, yun po. At saka po yung subsidy po ng, ng NPC na delayed sa amin.
Mukhang intermittent ng supply ng kuryente talaga sa Omeco. I show, sir. So, I guess they were dropped from the Zoom again. But before we proceed, may I just acknowledge the presence of Honorable Zaldi S. Villa. So while waiting for Omeco to come back online, may we now proceed to the Power One Corporation. I think Power One Corporation is here. Mr. Paul Torres.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Sir, yes.
Can you come closer to the mic? Thank
Sorry,
you.
Sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yes, sir, yung Power One actually completely agrees with the premises. And in fact, have been for the last 2 years together with Ormeco, trying to convey the same message po to the energy authorities. We wish also to, however, add to some aspect of what Power One supposed failure to supply the contracted generation capacity. Sir, first po is that Power One's failure to supply the contracted generation capacity has been a result of its failure to get reimbursed for more than 2 years for the advances it had been making for the fuel through the timely missionary subsidy releases of NPC. And of course, yung 9 megawatt po na base load ng aming kumpanya, bunker fuel po siya. It started in 2013 and that will last until 2032. We have invested, so 9 megawatts po lang yun, but we have invested of a net of 20 megawatt capacity, more than double of its contracted 9 megawatt, and we have provided about 150 to 200 million in fuel working capital. and credit lines to cover the fuel procurements and USME subsidy, release cycles of 45 to 60 days. Ngayon po, pag lumagpas po kasi yung aming yung 45 to 60 days, doon po nagkakaroon na po kami ng problem to operate. So, but as I said po initially, we have started this. We have nung nag-umpisa po yan, umabot na po ng 2 years yung aming pong advances and uncollected po na subsidy. Kaya po umabot ng ganito. But other than that, sir, we have already filed our reply to the committee, and if there's anything po, we'll be glad to answer any questions. Good morning po, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Power One Corporation. We now hear from Occidental Mindoro Consolidated Power Corporation. Mr. Calvin Genotiva.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, honorable members of the committee. Last September 16, I submitted our comments to the House Resolutions number 34 and 116. But before I expound on our comments, I would just like to make a clarification on the issue of the 50% penalty subsidy, a subsidy penalty that was imposed by ERC on OMECO. This issue has not been resolved. Okay, that order of June 23 by ERC says that moving forward from June 23, the approved PSAs by ERC, which is the PSAs of Mamburao and PSA of Sablayan, is eligible for subsidy. And we are already supplying power based on those PSAs. But the 50% penalty has not been resolved. That issue is still pending. We filed a motion for clarification from the ERC. And as of now, technically, it is still OMECO who is liable for that balance of 208 million out of the total of more than 400 million from the period of December to June 2022. Now, in my comments to comments on the House resolutions, I mentioned in my letter that as of the moment, we have installed capacity of 25 megawatts in the whole province of Mindoro. 20 megawatts is from the existing supply of our bunker plant, 9 megawatts from our new plant in Mamburao, and 6 megawatts from our Sablayan plant, for which ERC has already approved the PSAs. Now, right now, we are supplying a minimum of 12 megawatts based on these two approved PSAs. The existing bunker plant is part of a Samarica PSA for which we have already pre-filed. Now, the reason why this was delayed because there is a solar component of 7.5 megawatts. And as we know, the solar energy technology takes quite a while to process. Right now, we have already applied for our solar energy operating contract and awaiting approval, and have applied for an ECC. Those are the two pending documents, but we have already pre-filed with the ERC. The prevailing issues right now is basically financial. Okay, that number one is the non-payment of the penalty imposed by ERC on OMECO. So with the loan of NEA to OMECO last September of 50 million, we have been able to operate last October regularly. We have been able to pay our electric bills. Now, as I said, this issue has not been resolved. Now, 200 million is a big amount of money, which we have already spent, but for which we have not been paid. Now, because of this, we are experiencing insufficient fuel supply because we have been unable to procure sufficient fuel. In addition, there is delay or inability of NPC to disburse subsidy. For example, our October billing, which our July 2022 billing, which is supposed to be paid this October, which we will use to pay our maturing fuel bills this month, is still pending because understandably NPC is waiting for an ERC resolution on certain clarifications on the issue of power rates. And we were assured that the ERC resolution will be coming out very soon. But until that those resolutions come out, NPC could not pay our July billing. So that's right now, we have operated July, August, September, October, 4 months for which we have already spent money, which we are awaiting collection. Now, understandably, probably the October billing is not yet in the books of NPC, but insofar as our books are concerned, we have collections of more than 400 million already, excluding the July. Now, 500 million of collectibles plus the 200 million, the 700 million is a lot of money, which is severely affecting our finances. So, as I mentioned, Honorable Chair, our issue is not capacity, as we have installed capacities of 20 plus 9 plus 6. Our constraint really is financial and economic. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, OMCPC. May we now hear from Phil Reca?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning to everyone, to all the members of this honorable committee, and to all the resource persons present here today. PhilReca, the Association of the Electric Cooperatives in the country, would like to make a brief presentation of our position paper pending our submission of our official position paper relative to the issues and concerns raised at hand that does not only affect Ormeco and Omeco, but also the other electric cooperatives who are similarly situated. So specifically for Omeco's concern, despite Omeco's effort to seek intervention of all the concerned agencies, including the national and local government, even the continuous rallies of our MCOs, the member consumer owners of Omeco, the power supply deficit remained unresolved and threat of power shutdown continues. With this continuous suffering of the people of the whole Oriental Mindoro, and was declared under power crisis by the Sangguniang Palalawigan, it greatly affects the lives and businesses and livelihood of the MCOs in Omeco. So Omeco and PhilReca continues to sought the intervention of ERC and NPC, specifically for ERC to immediately issue specific order to clarify the 50% penalty being charged to Omeco, among which interpretation of OMCPC and Omeco is substantially correct. So we would like to appeal again to ERC to hopefully settle this concern, and for ERC to consider Omeco's appeal not to penalize Omeco for the 50% of the difference of TCGR and SAGR. We also appeal to NPC to prioritize the payment of subsidy to Occidental Mindoro, given that the province is under power crisis and fuel allocation of the sole provider is the main cause of the power shutdown. Also to consider its prior decision and allowed acceptance of partial delivery of contracted capacity of its suppliers. In a meeting with the ERC, Omeco made the presentation and requested ERC to immediately issue specific order to clarify the concern relative to the 50% penalty, among which the interpretation of OMCPC and Omeco is substantially correct, and to consider Omeco's appeal to not to be penalized, as mentioned earlier. And ERC then, through its chairwoman, Attorney Malanta, said that the commission will study and do its best to see if the commission can move the date of the PA, and ERC will also be providing their official reply to the Omeco's motion for clarification dated August 10, 2022. However, to date, the matter has not yet been resolved, as mentioned by the resource speaker from OMCPC. Finally, to hopefully address the recurring challenges in the power supply of the off-grid electric cooperatives like Omeco and Ormeco and the ECs in the off-grid areas, may we propose the following recommendations, Mr. Chair. We appeal for the possible provision for funding for off-grid electric cooperatives for rural electrification, both for generation and distribution. Second, development and enhancement of policies to support electric cooperatives in the development of power generation facilities in the off-grid areas, and in the availment of UCME subsidy as provided for in Section 9 of RA 10531. Third, Mr. Chair, to streamline the power supply procurement process, there should be a separate process flow for, first, emergency power supply procurement that is 1 year, and second is for normal power supply procurement almost 3 years. So dapat po magkakaiba ang proseso nito dahil alam po natin pag emergency power supply procurement na 1 year lamang, sana mas maiksi ang proseso at hindi po ito katulad ng normal process ng procurement. Fourth, Mr. Chair, to restore the provisions of DOE Circular DC 2018-02-003, particularly Section 2.2.2, to qualify the emergency power supply access from UCME subsidy to reduce the cost of electricity affordable across all types of consumers. And fifth, Mr. Chair, we agree that the electric cooperatives should already venture in renewable energy. But we need the support of the government. We need support on the development of renewable energy generation facilities for the electric cooperatives to address the issues on increasing cost of generation charges sourced from diesel gensets. As mentioned by one of the authors of the House resolutions in today's hearing, it is indeed the call for the ECs to venture into renewable energy, but we need the support of the government for the electric cooperatives. Six, Mr. Chair, to develop long-term policies of off-grid electric cooperatives to be connected to the main grid. Interconnection of off-grid islands would significantly reduce the UCME subsidy. We strongly recommend for the prioritization of connection to the main grid of viable islands of Mindoro, covering the franchise of Omeco and Ormeco. It also would cover the areas in Marinduque, Aurora, Sultan Kudarat, Catanduanes, Palawan, Masbate, which will reduce the subsidy by almost 50.62%. And it will also answer or address the concern on power supply. And seventh, Mr. Chair, on late disbursement of UCME subsidy to NPPs, to avert the shutdown of NPP operation due to delayed disbursement of UCME subsidies to NPPs, the ECs are forced to advance the payments of the required subsidy to NPPs to continually provide power supply to its consumers. For several instances, this happened to the operations of electric cooperatives, particularly in Omeco and Ormeco, who have advanced their respective NPPs in the amount of 30 million and 90 million respectively. Viewing this situation, Mr. Chair, the ECs are the one trying to find ways to better serve its consumers. There is larger picture in the system that must be fixed to further improve the delivery of service in the off-grid areas. We recommend to promptly release the UCME subsidy to NPP so that the operation of the ECs will not be disrupted, shutting down the power plants of NPPs. This has already happened in Omeco and Ormeco, and we would not want this to happen in some of the other electric cooperatives who are also similarly situated. Eighth, Mr. Chair, on the non-payment of UCME subsidy for emergency power supply to prevent the impending power supply shortage in EC franchise areas due to delayed CSP process or the competitive selection process brought about by delayed approval of the terms of reference and other related documents of the CSP process, the ECs are resorting to emergency power supply procurement as allowed by DOE under DC 2018-02-003 and 2021-09-0030. However, the latter has prohibited the NPPs to be entitled from any subsidies provided in Section 2.2. In this regard, Mr. Chair, for this reason, the ECs shall have to pay the TCGR of the energy coming from the negotiated power supply procurement to as high as 24.74 per kilowatt hour in the case of Ormeco. In the case of Omeco, the MCO shall have to pay 50% of the difference of the TCGR and SAGR. We therefore recommend, Mr. Chair, that the provision of subsidy for emergency power supply be restored as provided for in DOE Circular DC 2018-02-003. Ninth, Mr. Chair, we would like to recommend to repeal and amend Rule 10 of DOE Circular DC 2019-01-001. Unlike in the main grid, the recent astronomical increase in the electricity that can be viewed as a result of the global market forces on price of fuel on which we don't have or have less control is the impact of price of electricity. However, in the off-grid areas, the impending increase will be designed or intentional increase by the government itself through the issuance of Rule 10 of DOE Circular BC 2019-1-01-001 and as recommended in the studies commissioned by the DOE itself. May we therefore appeal, Mr. Chair, for the intervention of this committee for the immediate resolution of the concerns confronting OMECO and ORMECO and the other electric cooperatives who are similarly situated. Again, Mr. Chair, we reiterate the need for grid interconnectivity or connectivity as a long-term solution for the 6 House resolutions being heard today. As promised, Mr. Chair, we will be submitting our official position paper for consideration of this honorable committee, the DOE, the ERC, the NEA, and other regulatory agencies. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Phil Reca, for those recommendations given. Hopefully, we receive your position paper by next week. Can we now hear from Phil Feco? Phil Feco, Mr. Jeffrey Endriga, if you are there. If not, can we proceed to Pepoa? Is Attorney Ocampo there? If you have any comments. Okay, if proceeding, can we hear from NAGMEC? Mr. Allan Adiba?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, NAGMEC.
To our my audio is clear. I just want to check.
Yes, please. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, former Speaker Allan Velasco. All the House resolutions, as we read in the NAGMEC, is looking at the power problems in that big island of Mindoro, the 2 electric cooperatives. In the House Resolution number 34, it states that to explore and prescribe long-term solutions and strengthening the competitive selection process. Other resolutions talks about power supply crisis, the load shedding. I think all are interrelated of these different House resolutions of the Congress. Power crisis. If only the provisions of the PERA are all implemented, we know that it's already 20 years. And I think the primary aim of EPERA, why the generation and even the transmission has been given to be participated by the private sector, is to address everything, that all the islands in the country will be interconnected. The immediate relief and solution had been stated already by Phil Reca, and I agree with that. But for long-term solution, the key to solve this everything, I think, is to connect the Mindoro in the grid. Dahil pag na-connect na po ito sa grid, yung CSP, you have a lot of options and there are a lot of suppliers of electricity that will bid for the competitive selection process because it is connected to the grid. So that's the position of NIPMEC, that I think the long-term solution to have that reliable power supply in the island, and we will have, we will not be confined to limited CSP of those generations in the island, is to connect those these islands in Mindoro to the grid, Mr. Chair. That's doon na lang kami tututok dahil kung dadamihan natin, I think all of those mentioned by Philreca, susunod na yon pag na-connect yung island na yan. And I think that's one thing na hindi natin, I'm not blaming anyone, but that's one thing na hindi na-address in the last 20 years when the EPERA was enacted into law. Yung malalaking mga islands, dahil pag na-connect yun, it will ease the burden of the consumers in the mainland paying UCME. Mawawala na yon dahil connected na sila. Other than that, doon sa island na na-connect, mumura din yung kuryente nila dahil they have a lot of options. They can buy it in the market, and during the CSP, maraming pwedeng mag-bid because it is connected to the grid. And everything, yun po, for the NAGMEC positions, we just focus on that long-term solution while we are agreeing on other statements like in PILRECA for immediate relief and solution in that area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, NAGMEC. If there is no other resource persons who do want to comment or give any statement, then we may now proceed to the interpellations of our members to the resource persons. But before that, I just want to state that the issues surrounding the island province of Mindoro, the two provinces, Occidental and Oriental, is very close to my heart, mainly because Mindoro is a neighbor of Marinduque, and true enough, the problems besetting Mindoro are the same problems. Not really the same problems, but had the same problems before. We used to experience 6 to 12-hour brownouts, and the electric cooperative used to have a liability of around 300 million. So those are the things that really put a lot of hardships to the constituents of Marinduque. And now I can see that in Mindoro, they're experiencing the same thing. Hard to move forward, especially from the pandemic. But as we see that the problems that are besetting these two provinces have been laid down already, looking at, if I remember it correctly, the penalty imposed by the ERC, the NPPs, I think it also boils down to the capacity of the NPPs to pay for the fuel consumption or in running their plants. And I think it also boils down to the management of the electric cooperatives. Because looking back in Marinduque, we had a couple of different general managers who handled the electric cooperatives. And I can truly say that with the present GM that we have now in Marinduque, we actually have a very stable electric supply in Marinduque. Although our peak demand is only around 10 to 11 megawatts, but our supply is roughly around 14 to 15 megawatts. So more than what is needed, more than enough. And one thing that I would like to say also is I would like to thank NPC, because we do not have an NPP yet. Still, NPC is providing the power in Marinduque, but I can truly say that with Napocor's supply, we are very stable, although we would want to ask also to have an NPP to be able to supply. But one of the solutions that I've seen for the province, and it was actually broadcasted by NAGMEC, one of the solutions to the problems of SPUG areas is actually interconnectivity. And I believe we already have a petition with the ERC since 2 years ago, I think, that we will be interconnected to the national grid through Quezon. And I believe that would be a very good solution also to the problem in Mindoro. And for the other SPUG areas, I believe that if we also push for the interconnectivity, eventually the UCMEs, we will already say goodbye to that. But in replacement to the UCME, that would be for the payment of the submarine cables. But for the payment of the submarine cables, it will only last for a certain period, unlike the UCME, which I believe looks as if it's perpetual right now. But if we try to push for interconnectivity in all the island provinces, then we would say goodbye already to the UCME, or not all, but it would be drastically reduced. So with this, I would like to give the chance to our principal authors to question our resource persons, and also it would be very good if we can also hear about the history of each electric cooperative as to how they got to this point wherein the problems in their respective cooperatives happened, especially as to the procurement of their power supply. We would want to hear the history of that. So in the course of answering, I hope we can actually see the whole picture as to per cooperative. So in starting, may I ask Honorable Alfonso Umali, specifically for Oriental Mindoro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Honorable Umali, may I request our interpellators first to limit questioning until 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
We will have a timer which will be done by our committee here in Energy. Thank you, and please proceed.
Well, siguro for a start, yung history, no? We were running well before, ano? Maganda yung ano namin. With our GM na who was AAA. We were AAA. Ormeco was AAA.
Sir,
And,
what year po ito?
Aba, when I was governor. When
When was that, sir? Last year?
I was governor in 2010 to 2019.
Yes. Nagbibiro lang ako, boss. 2010 to 2019.
Oh,
Okay.
we were running well, ano? Very well, actually. So,
Very recent.
19.
Yes. So very recent nga, sir.
So, after that, alam niyo naman, medyo politika. Pinaltan yung GM namin because tao raw namin ni Kong Aryo. So, that started it all. Tasira yung ano. Ang pinalit nila, from AAA, we became CCC. Ngayon, as of now. Di ba? So, ito, alam ito ni, ano, ni Asek Mario. So, hindi ko na inaano yun kasi tapos na yan eh. Pero ano lang, ang hinahabol ko lang, I'd like to know, ano ba yung estado ng ano? Ano ba estado ng appointment ngayon ng bagong GM? Ano, I'd like to ask Ormeco, yung si Miss Ruth Ramirez.
Yes, Miss Ruth,
Yes.
can you please answer the question of Honorable
Ano ba yung
Umali?
position mo ngayon doon sa ano, sa Ormeco?
Good morning po, Congressman Umali. It's good to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, actually, I was installed as project supervisor last September 28. Kasi nag-withdraw nga po si OIC Engineer Humphrey Dolor.
Kailan yan?
So,
Kailan?
September 28.
Okay.
But then, siya po kasi yung loan qualified na applicant. So, nag-install lang din po siya recently. That was,
Well,
I think,
Let me butt in,
okay
ano?
po.
When you say qualified, does he have to be a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer? Kasi I heard electronics engineer siya.
Sir,
So, tapos walang ibang qualified. I do not believe that eh.
okay po.
Hindi
Meron
ko
po
naniniwala.
kasing process, nagkaroon po ng process ang NEA po for the selection of GM. So, meron pong in charge po dyan sa selection process po ng general manager ng mga electric cooperatives. So, meron po silang parameters na sinusunod kung how a GM will qualify po doon sa kanilang set of parameters. So, it so happened na among the applicants, si Engineer Humphrey Dolor po, na-meet niya po yung minimum requirements. So,
Which is?
hindi po ako masyadong particular po doon sa mga requirements kasi meron po talagang assigned na department or unit na in charge po doon sa selection process po.
Honorable Umali, if I may interject, I believe if we'd want to hear the parameters in selecting the GM, may we ask NEA if
Sige,
they
please.
can enlighten us?
We will just submit po siguro po dito sa body yung pong parameters po doon sa selection po ng general manager.
Ormeco and NEA?
Yeah, when
Sorry, you represent Miss Ruth, you represent
Ormeco.
NEA and Ormeco?
Yes, I'm representing, yes po, I'm representing po Ormeco as project supervisor. And at the same time, I was tasked to speak for on behalf of NEA po.
So dapat alam mo na yung mga parameters as NEA representative.
Sir, as mentioned earlier nga po, meron po kasing nag-handle po nung proseso, and doon po sa unit namin, hindi po sa amin po yung ano na yun, yung pag-select ng GM. But anyway, we will send po in this honorable body po yung parameters, sir.
Okay.
So, Ms. Ruth, when can you submit to the committee as to the parameters in the selection of the GM?
Friday na po. Siguro po,
Next
if
week?
not, yes, by next week po,
Okay.
early next week po.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Umali?
Sige.
Mr.
So-
Chair, if I'll just
Yes,
follow up one
Honorable
question.
Palma. If Honorable
Project
Umali, is it
supervisor,
okay?
meaning with the indulgence of the chair, project supervisor, or what's your designation, ma'am?
Project supervisor po sa Ormeco.
Yeah, anong role yan? You're acting as GM?
No, sir, bali, ako po yung nag-oversee po ng kanilang operation as to dun sa kanilang efficiency. And then yung to ensure po yung continuous power
Pero
supply.
para may GM kayo.
Ngayon po, naka-install po siya si Engineer Dolor was installed as
As
GM
GM.
po, opo. Pero under po siya ng performance management contract for 1 year.
Okay. Sir, Mr. Chair, kasi sa province ko, walang GM, but project supervisor ang nakalagay. Installed by NEA.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Honorable Palma, sinabi lang po ng ating kasama sa DOE, that's the power of NEA as stepping in rights nila in case na wala pang nag-handle nung electric co-op. So, just like Miss Ruth, she's the project manager, supervisor for the electric co-op. In the meantime po, sir. So, just like sa inyo po, meron rin yata kayong project supervisor, Honorable Palma.
Mr. Chair, sabi niya mayroon daw silang GM eh.
Yes po. So, ka-install lang po.
Specifically, kaka-install.
Under performance management contract, that is for 1 year po. So, kung natin in layman's term, parang provisionary po.
So in short, after that, aalis ka na rin.
Opo, once na na-stabilize na po yung operation po.
Okay, so to be clear, if it's a contracted GM, andyan pa rin yung project supervisor until you appoint already a permanent GM, is that correct?
Yes po.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Ruth. Yes, Honorable Mali.
Sige. So, okay, and at least that made things clearer, ano? So, I'd like to go back to my earlier question. What is the status of GM Dolor now?
So meanwhile, we are in collaboration po dun po sa pag-improve ng kanilang governance and yung other yung sa kanilang business process. So tinutulungan ko na lang din po sila kung yung mga gaps po dun sa kanilang operation, just filling in the gaps po dun sa
So,
operation ng Ormeco.
Is he still a candidate for a GM position in Ormeco?
Sir, siya po yung napili po.
Ngayon,
Among those
ngayon.
applicants. Yes, sir.
O, di sabi mo kanina, di wala na. Siya pa rin talaga.
Siya po.
Okay.
But under po siya ng performance management
Sige.
contract.
May tatanong lang akong very crucial eh. Do you know that he is the supplier, ito known nito sa of crude oil sa Ormeco?
Sir, wala po kami kasing nakikitang complaints or
And then,
references. for
is
that
it
matter.
allowed? Is that allowed? I'd like to ask the panel, kung lahat doon sa electric, is it allowed na for a GM to represent siya ang supplier ng crude oil doon sa siya nagsusupply. Common knowledge ito sa Mindoro. Pwede ba 'yon? Can I ask the panel?
So to be more precise, Honorable Umali, you're saying that the general manager present right now in Ormeco is the one supplying fuel to the independent power producer? Yun ba yan, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hmm. Bayaan mo na.
Let's listen to Ma'am Ruth.
Okay. Sir, we haven't received any complaint to that matter. So siguro po kung meron po talagang ganong situation, pwede pong erase po yan sa NEA, sir.
So, actually, nasabi ko na yan eh. Sa nasabi ko na sa Napo Korea. Nasabi ko na yan sa DOE eh. Pero, ano ba ginagawa? Wala namang ginagawa eh. Pero what I'm asking now is it allowed? Pwede ba sa inyo yung ganon?
Can anyone answer? But I believe on
Chair,
my own
if I
personal
may.
opinion, Honorable Umali, before someone answers, I believe that could actually be one of the grounds you can, since it's only a performance management contract, so it's not yet the permanent GM. So for the selection process of the general manager, I think that can be one of the complaints you can file or objections to the appointment of the permanent GM Dolor at present. I think that could be one of your objections to his appointment as a permanent GM of Ormeco. And also, of course, sir, as to any accusations, we have to present evidences.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Umali.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ma'am Ruth, do you still have any more comments as to the...
None so far, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Definitely, Honorable Umali, I'm sure that's not allowed. Okay. Do you still have any more questions,
Yes,
sir?
yes. Kasi kanina I heard na ano yung pagkasabi ni NPC, ano na raw, na-solve na nila yung problem, parang
Let's ask NPC regarding his statement that it was
Yung-
solved already.
UCMC. O ano, may term ka ginamit.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Honorable Congressman. What I was telling a while ago, Mr. Chair, was that the payment of NPC to the NPPs on their subsidies has not, while it's not current, almost current, meaning it's only 2 months delayed. Now, particularly on the Mindoro NPPs, they are, I think, most of them are aware that the non-payment of some of their bills are for reasons that we require documentation. So the rest, we were able to pay it. I think you can ask them. So what we're saying is it should not be an excuse for them to say that they are not being paid because NPC cannot. There are reasons at this point why we cannot pay. True, there's a delay still, but what we are emphasizing is that it should not be anymore an excuse for their non-operation. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, kanina lang, Mr. Chair, sabi ng Power One, 2 years silang hindi nababayaran. Tama ba yon? 2 years? Bakit sabi mo 2 months lang?
Pero Honorable Umali, is Power One supplying in Occidental or Oriental?
Oriental.
Oriental, okay.
Tama ba yung sinabi mo kanina?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tama po, sir. About 2 years po yung aming mga uncollected po, advances po namin.
Can I clarify that again? Mr.
Please proceed, please
Yes,
proceed.
yes. Thank you. Now, that is correct in the sense that the 2-year period was a claim that was recently approved by ERC last April. Now, their billing was just received by NPC sometime July this year. And note that approval from ERC does not have even any allocation for 2022. So we're trying to stretch out all our resources to address this claim. So that's one. But I think they are also aware that the reason NPC cannot pay them fully because we paid partially already with those claims, there are documentations that we require them. So it's not actually that we're not able, yes, in a sense, because it's not enough, but mostly they have to submit some documentation, which they agree.
Sorry, can I interject, Honorable Umali? Attorney, ang question ko lang, you made mention of approval by the ERC as to the payment. Specifically, what was the role of ERC for the payment? Was there a petition filed with the ERC?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The 2-year supposed claim was a pending issue with ERC. And it was just recently resolved last April.
Why was there a pending issue as to the claim?
I think they are in a better position, Mr. Chair.
Is it okay, Honorable Umali, so we can get to the bottom of this? Yes, Power One.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Redulme of NPC is correct po. Then, although the 2-year po collected advances that we made was particularly for the operations of the plants that we put up in the southern portion of Oriental Mindoro, and this was to support the
At
distribution.
alauna, Starlight.
Opo.
At fast cut din at
Can you repeat,
Sorry.
Mr. Paul Torres? Sorry.
Sorry, sir. Sir, actually, as I said, it was the operations in Bansud. It was installed because of in preparation for the summer months in 2020, and at the same time po, it was the start of pandemic lockdowns. So we had to step up and operate po that plans and in coordination with Ormeco as well, because during that time natapos na po kasi yung kontrata nung iba pong mga NPPs operating the southern portion of Oriental Mindoro. So doon po nagumpisa yung aming pong collection na hindi po namin nakuha because when we operated it was during the lockdowns. And once na lockdown po siya, government offices then were closed. So the requirements of submissions of our permits and approvals were delayed. So but we had to operate kahit wala pong approval. So we have submitted our petitions with the ERC, and we are waiting for it. But doon po nagballoon po siya, sir. Kung bakit po sinabi po namin 2 years and it ballooned to about 850 million po. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Paul Torres, as to the claim, was that part of any power supply agreement, or was this like an emergency?
Yes, sir. It was part of the emergency solution that time because of although let me be clear, Mr. Chairman, that when we operated those plants, we were still within our original contract of 9.7. So what we did is just mainly our plants are in the northern portion of Mindoro. It's in Calapan. So portion po nagkakaroon ng problema. So we said, okay, we can help you. So what we're going to do is we will operate the gensets in southern part of Mindoro to help you para po and it will be within our contract, original contract. So there were no additional contracts signed. It was just a transfer of power ang nangyari po. And it was an emergency during that time.
So as far as I remember a while ago, your PSA is for 9 megawatts, and then your power plant can produce around 20 megawatts. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
So during that time, Ormeco asked you to provide additional electricity above the 9 megawatts?
No, Your Honor, it was our intention to actually upgrade and to we call this so that we can be able to supply fully to meet our contracted capacity. So it was in our investment, our own initiative to increase our capacity.
Increase capacity more than the 9 megawatts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was that with the approval of Ormeco, with ERC, DOE, NEA?
Yes, we wrote and asked for the approval of the agency, sir.
And they all approved this?
Yes, sir. We all have permits, and we all have we call this. We have filed with the COCs and with the ERCs.
So I know. So as to increases in the supply of power in a certain electric cooperative, definitely, as far as I know, you need to be covered by a PSA. No, it has to go through a CSP, unless there's an emergency uh, emergency power that's needed by the electric co-op. And that's the reason mainly because, and that's the reason why you filed a petition with the ERC for the approval of those amounts that you need to collect, no? For the additional power that you provided Ormeco. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
And it took ERC 2 years to decide on the case? On the petition, sorry.
Yes, sir. Actually, it's still pending and we're awaiting approval.
Can we ask ERC to comment? Okay lang ba? Sorry, Honorable Umalia. So para clear yung dire-diretso yung discussions natin, we can see where the...
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Honorable Garcia.
1 minute. Linawin ko lang, naguluhan na rin kasi ako eh. You're saying about 2 years, no? Yung backlog the loan. And then they're saying only 2 months. Are we talking about the same loan or the same liability? Kasi may 2 years, they're claiming ang kulang sa kanila. Pero sabi nila 2 months lang. So are they talking about the same, are we in the same page?
Did you any 2 months? Si NPC. Sa UCME pare. I think what Mr. Paul Torres is saying that since through the goodness of their heart during the pandemic that Ormeco needed additional power, they provided that additional power during that pandemic time. And that's the amount that is pending with the ERC that they are seeking to collect. And I believe that's one of the reasons why they are in financial distress right now, mainly because of that specific amount that they provided, which is roughly around 850 million. Wow.
Sir, that's right, sir. And let me also add and thank also the NPC. Well, just recently po, sir, we have already started collecting our reimbursements na regular po to. Ito po yung aming regular operations. But then, of course, without yung aming COC, the pending po with ERC, kung bakit po yun po lang hindi po namin nakokolekta pa. Pero as far as NPC, yung aming regular operations, nakokolekta na po namin na bibigyan na po ng NPC and we thank NPC for that.
Okay, so to make things clear as to the regular operations based on your PSA, NPC has fully paid any existing obligations. That's what I heard. Is that correct?
Sir, not fully, but they've already started paying the backlog po, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
They're already in the process of paying. So the only question is your 850 million that is spending in ERC. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're in financial distress, ang Power One Corporation, Honorable Umar. Would you want we ask ERC to comment? How come it took them 2 years and it's still pending? Would you...
Yes, because as far as I know, hindi na kayo ano ngayon eh. Hindi na kayo papatakbo kayo eh, di ba? Tumigil kayo or tinanggal kayo ng Ormeco?
Sir, to be so we can clarify po, sir, yung sinasabi pong hindi na tumatakbo, it was a interim power arrangement po lang. It was during po nung pandemic when Ormeco as emergency power nagpa-CSP po sila of about 15 megawatts. Pero it was emergency, it was about 16-month period po lang yon. And the fact na hindi na po kasi kami nakakakolekta, Your Honor. So we discussed it with Ormeco that because of our uncollected advances, hindi na po namin nakayanan. So kaya po kami nag-opt out na of that and it was with approval of Ormeco.
When they started paying, when Napocot started paying you, did you return to to operate? Nag-operate ba kayo ulit?
Sir, to be clear po rin, we did not stop operations. We are still in
Ano
operation.
yung tinanggal sa inyo ng Ormeco?
Sir, that was the interim power procurement plan po ng ginawa po ng Ormeco for the solution po ng summer and nung pandemic. And it was only 16-month period contract po, sir.
Honorable Umali, can I ask lang?
Sige.
Ilang megawatts yung interim?
Sir, umabot po ng 15 megawatts.
Wow.
Pero it was divided at all over the south and north portions po of Mindanao. So hindi po isang portion, kalat po siya para po to mitigate po the power.
Ma'am Ruth, ang Ormeco, ilan ang peak demand nyo? If not, I'm sure Mr. Paul Torres knows. Mr. Paul, ilan ang peak demand ng Oriental Mindoro?
$60 megawatt po.
60 megawatts. Ilan ang supply ngayon ng Oriental Mindoro?
Okay. So, mas mataas nga. This is as of November 15. So, as of November 15 po, total supply is 61.45 megawatts and demand is 52.3 megawatts.
So you have oversupply of a couple of megawatts. So the supply right now is 61 megawatts. Last question, kasi yung iba nating mga members, we'll just continue later, Honorable Umali. So Ma'am Ruth, so if it's 61 megawatts, bakit nagkakaroon pa rin ng brownouts ang Oriental Mindoro recently?
Sir, actually, during my stay po, no, since nung pagka-install sa akin, wala po akong experience ng brownout except po nung nagkaroon tayo ng typhoon. Pero nagkaroon naman po ng restoration in 3-day time na restored po yung power.
And that 61 is covered by a PSA?
Yes po.
Okay. The whole 61 naka-PSA yan. So, Honorable Umali, we'll move on first. Nahiya na ako because I just needed, pasensya na po sa ating mga members, I just needed to ask questions because medyo magulo yung situation in Oriental Mindoro and what happened. So I just wanted it cleared. So looking at it, medyo clear na po tayo as to Oriental Mindoro. And let's proceed to the next interpellator. And we'll just go back to Oriental Mindoro after all the members have asked already. So transferring, let's go to Occidental Mindoro. Let's hear from Honorable Leody Tarriela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alam mo, this committee hearing is I can say na timing, no, because yesterday nag-start na naman yung blackout namin ng 12 hours, no. So a brief history, yung OMECO and Occidental Mindoro Electric Cooperative and Emerging Power Corporation, EPI, nag-contract into agreement ng 44 megawatt na geothermal, no? So nag-start sila, nag-contract sila ng 44 megawatt between OMECO and EPI, no? Ngayon, yung EPI nanalo sila, nagkaroon sila ng PSA. And then yung na-assign sa Mindoro, supposed to be nag-backup, nagkaroon sila ng backup na 21.5 megawatt na diesel power plant, no? So that was 2014, I think, Tony, no? And then hindi nakapag-produce ng geothermal, no? So yung PSA na-assign sa OMCPC at naging main source yung 21 megawatt na power plant sa Occidental Mindoro. So dumating yung 2017, no? 2017. So afterwards, yun na yung naging main source ng electricity ng Occidental Mindoro. So yung PSA hindi naman na-accomplish, I think. So nagkaroon ng mga parang extension para magkaroon lang ng kuryente. So ngayon, we have 3 power plants in Occidental Mindoro, 1 in Mamburao, the 9 megawatt, 1 in Sablayan, 5 megawatt, and in San Jose, we have 20 megawatt, no? So
yung ginagamit ngayon, ginagamit ng OMCPC ngayon, yung 20 megawatt, pero yun ay walang PSA, no? Walang PSA, ASEC, no? Correct me if I'm wrong. So ngayon, ang nagbe-base sila doon sa 12, yung sinusupply nila ngayon, yung 12 to 14 megawatt na may power supply agreement na galing sa Mamburao and sa Marikano. So my question is, I think my question will be addressed to NEA, of course, sa DOE, and then sa OMCPC.
Yes, can we hear first from Nea?
So yun lang, bakit ang ginagamit nila yung 20 megawatt, yung power plant sa San Jose, hindi nila na hanggang ngayon hindi napapatakbo yung nag-ooperate yung Mamburao and Samarica.
Sir, as far as I know, during our power forum with the Occidental, Mindoro, and all other stakeholders, including the OMCPC, according to OMCPC, they cannot operate it because of lack, according to them, they lack legal basis, which is the COC. Where in fact, I told Mr. Calvin that in the absence of COC, they can operate if they secure the what we call the provisional authority to operate from the ERC. However, they were not able to secure the said document. So now they still wait for the COC, and from there, I don't know the status of the issuance of the COC that they are referring to. However, according to Sir Calvin, even if the COC be issued to them, they don't have fuel supply because they were not able to receive any payment from NPC, the UCME subsidy, sir.
So kanina nakita ko yung narinig ko yung pronouncement ni Calvin, no? Hindi nila ma-submit because meron silang kulang na renewable energy requirement, no? Parang sinabi niya kanina, narinig niyo ba yun, Asek, no?
Yes, that's another factor, sir. Yun pa po, yung mga regulatory requirements, kulang pa po sila. So, marami pa silang documentation that they need to comply with, sir.
So,
Your Honor.
alam nyo, Mr. Chair, no? Alam nyo, pagkapanalo ko lang nung Mayo, no? Hindi pa tayo nauupo. Inaasikaso ko na ito. 5 months. Umabot na ko hanggang sa kay Senator Tulfo. Pero yung ding words na ito ang naririnig natin, no? So, ibig sabihin, hindi tayo objective, hindi kulang, kulang yung action. Ngayon, yung alam natin kulang yung supply ng kulang yung may PSA kasi every time na yung kanina narinig naman natin, meron silang sinasabi na yung financial capability nila, no? May problema sila financially. So, ang pinapatakbo lang nila yung ginagamit nila yung 12 to 14 megawatt na kung saan may power supply agreement because doon sila makakakuha ng subsidy. I am right? So, ganyan yan. Siyempre, negosyo yan. Ngayon, nag-propose na kami noon na ito siguro, I think, the Department of Energy and then the OMECO also can answer. Sabi, ang advice din ng DOE, mag-emergency power procurement na. Pero hanggang ngayon, no, wala silang ginagawa. May 9, nakalagay dito, no? Mayroong 9 proponent, no? Na nag-o-offer ng supply, no? Renewable energy. So hanggang ngayon, wala. Inihintay yung CSP. Alam naman natin yung CSP, it will take siguro 2 years. Baka ASEC Marasigan, matatapos na yung term ko. Wala matapos yung term namin ay hindi natin na-solve itong problema ng kuryente ng Occidental Mindoro. So I am appealing sa DOE, ano bang masasabi nyo? Ano bang makuha nyo sa UMECO?
Before Asek Mario answers, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence also of Honorable Ruth Mariano Hernandez. Yes, Asek Mario.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Honorable Tarriela. Yes, we affirm that during our Occidental Mindoro Energy Forum, we did evaluate the situation. And factually, we have established that there are, that indicated in the terms of reference in the conducted competitive selection process, the timelines on the winning bidders. So it is stated kung ilang days ang required for the power plant to fully operate, to submit to ERC the required clearances and permits, and also the submission of whatever documents necessary. Now, during the forum, we have established that apparently there are non-compliant timelines, even by the winning bidder. And we suggested that should there be a full re-evaluation on the competitive selection process, then the DOE can consider the granting of a certificate of exemption for another conduct of competitive selection process if needed, subject to the validation of the result. And I wish to affirm also that Samarica, which is the biggest of the 3 lots conducted for the said CSP, is not yet filed due to lacking compliance to the bid. As mentioned earlier, part of the bid is the installation of a solar power plant.
The renewable.
The renewable component. And per my validation with our Renewable Energy Management Bureau, while the said application is filed, there remains lacking documentary requirements that are not yet submitted by the applicant. As such, as we have indicated before, there should be a revisit on the actual conduct of the competitive selection process. Now, in the case of the other 2 lots, the MAPSA and Sablayan, we recognize that at the time of the forum, the existing Samarica power plant has to run as replacement power supply of the 2 other lots that were already provided with the provisional approval by the ERC. That means it can already proceed to its operation.
Sorry to interject. Asek Mario, if the ERC gives a provisional approval, then that gives the IPP the authority already to operate and also collect.
Yes.
Okay.
So the two lots were already approved, but since there remain some technical deficiencies, then we did allow, or during the forum, we recognize for the need to the existing Samarica power plant to run. But until now, September po yun, November na ngayon, so more than 2 months, the 2 lots are not yet being operated. And what is being provided is still the replacement power. So I think that is parallel to the line of to what Honorable Congressman Tarriela has mentioned earlier. So there is really a question why the 2 other lots that have been previously approved by ERC is not yet operating, and then why can't they proceed also with the joint filing of the PSA with ERC with regards to the 3rd lot under the CSP. That's the information I can provide with the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Tarriela? Yes.
Yeah, siguro we can ask the NEA and the OMCPC also. and
Let's
the MECO.
hear from OMCPC first. OMCPC? So Mr. Calvinton.
Good morning again, Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to confirm that the two power plants we have in Sablayan and Mamburao are already in place. In fact, Mamburao, the 9 megawatt power plant in Mamburao already has a provisional authority to operate. As for the 6 megawatt power plant in Sablayan, the ERC has already inspected the power plant and we are awaiting for the COC. Regardless, as ASIC Mario has mentioned, we have been complying with the provisions of the two approved PSAs by supplying a maximum of 12 megawatts from our bunker plant, for which the Samarica PSA is still in the pre-filing stage. Now, regardless if we run both diesel plants and or source power from our bunker plant, the fact is we have been supplying and complying with our obligation to supply 12 megawatts based on the two approved PSAs. Now, we in fact requested ERC and asked ERC if we can supply more than 12 megawatts because we have a 20 megawatt operating bunker plant. So yesterday we received an ERC order dated August 4, which is in relation to an earlier resolution of the same date. And I would like to cite a relevant provision on page 16 of the order, which says OMCPC resume partial operations only up to 12 megawatts, provisionally approved by the Commission. Subsequently, on July 29, the Commission received reports that OMCPC had begun supplying an additional 8 megawatts, subject to clarification from the Commission as to what rate would be applied to the additional capacity. The Commission finds that the power generated and delivered by OMCPC in compliance with the contractual obligations of its PSA with OMECO for the Samarica area and its consequent obligation to guarantee the continued supply of power in the province, having been done without prior approval of the ERC, must be considered as unapproved or ineligible supply contract. And I would like to jump to the last paragraph, which says, lastly, considering that the supply in excess of 12 megawatts contracted capacity was delivered without prior approval, the Commission shall further look into the matter for purposes of determining propriety of the imposition of applicable sanctions and penalties as may be allowed under the existing laws, rules, and regulations if warranted. So it is clear that we can supply only up to 12 megawatts. However, we've been supplying more than that since June. Now, the question now is, why don't we have an approval for the Samarica PSA? And as I have explained earlier, the solar component is delaying the application because, as we all know, a solar application requires a lot of documentation from the LGUs up to the DOE, especially in the application, the Solar Energy Operating Contract. And after the initial review of our SEOC application, there are some revisions that we have to do in our mapping requirement, which is the only lacking requirement as of now. So it is clear that while we can supply legally 12 megawatts, there is also the problem of financial capacity due to collectibles from our suppliers, from our off-taker, and the subsidy requirements. There is a pending clarification which ERC is supposedly also supposed to issue an order already as to the rate for the 12 megawatts that we are supplying, because there has been an obvious clerical error in the order, in that NPC had to return or wanted to return our application, our claim for subsidy. But pending that, in fairness to NPC, he said just get the ERC clarification. So we are at that stage right now. So we are probably not going to get any subsidy payment for this month of November. Your Honor, that is my update.
Thank you, OMCPC. So, wait, I just want to clarify again. So, we've already clarified with Oriental Mindoro. So, let's clarify with Occidental Mindoro. So, the peak demand for Occidental is 27 megawatts.
29 to 30 megawatts right now.
29 megawatts. And the approved PSA is only for 12 megawatts.
12 megawatts.
So they're still lacking 17 megawatts. No? So Occidental Mindoro right now is experiencing brownouts of how many hours per day?
At least 12 hours, not yesterday.
Because of load shedding, because the power provider is only allowed to provide 12 megawatts.
Yeah, but for the last 3 weeks, no, the NPC, they have a power plant there, no, 10 megawatt, no. Ito nga yung naging malaking tulong sa Occidental, yung last roundtable discussions namin. So pinagbigyan tayo ng board ng NPC. That's why maraming salamat na mapatakbo yung kanilang magamit yung 10 megawatt power plant nila. Kaya lang yesterday and the other day, parang almost a week na merong silang maintenance, no? So nagkaroon ng maintenance, no? So hindi tumatakbo yung planta. So that's why we are experiencing the 12 hours brownout, no?
Question. NPC can just come in at any time? No, ano yan? No, okay. Yes, sir. For missionary areas, NPC can come in at any time? Even without the approval of ERC? For supply of electricity. For example, in Omeco, OMCPC supplied more than the 12 megawatts, but of course that additional supply needs the approval of ERC, but it was denied by the ERC. So I'm sure OMCPC appealed that order, so it's still pending, I'm sure, in ERC. So now I heard from Honorable Tarriela, NPC came in because you have a 10 megawatt generator in Occidental. So my question is, NPC can come in at any time even without the approval of ERC?
No, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify our entry in that area. So NPC is supposedly had to have graduated from that area. But due to that...
Sorry, Sir Ridulme, let me just interject. You graduated from that area because of the entry of the NPP. Okay.
That is correct,
even if the NPP doesn't provide for the whole requirements of Occidental Mindoro.
That is the reason why NPC came back, because of that failure.
Because the only approved PSA is only 12 megawatts. Is that correct? So there's a difference of around 17 megawatts. And that gave you the authority to come back and supply the difference? Is that... I'm just trying to find out
yes,
how...
Mr. Chair. You're correct in the sense that NPC came back because of the need to supply the additional power. But it doesn't mean that NPC can just go back to that area. Primarily, we have the DOE that's giving us the instruction and the guidance, whether we come back as the power of last resort, remember, as a government entity to supply insufficient power in the area.
Okay, so only upon instructions of the DOE?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Sorry, Attorney Dulme. Asek Mario?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the honorable members. There was a time in 2019 where we did an evaluation on the situation of Mindoro. We have also noticed the delays in the conduct of the competitive selection process, not only on Oriental Mindoro, but also in Occidental Mindoro. There was also the dispute over the PSA which was mentioned by Honorable Tarriela earlier, between the emerging power incorporated involving geothermal and the replacement power being provided by what is now the OMCPC. The DOE sees the gap, and the former Secretary Kusi instructed or gave direct instruction to the National Power Corporation, Small Power Utilities Group, to provide the temporary solution for the islands of Mindoro while the two electric cooperatives are conducting competitive selection process. We have initially indicated that we need around 25 megawatts. Unfortunately, or fortunately for NPC, during detailed discussions on what are the necessary supply, it boils down that only Occidental Mindoro needed up to 10 megawatts of capacity. That's the reason why we have the contractor or the leased facilities of NPC installed in Occidental Mindoro. And that is also consonance to what was mentioned earlier by BP Redulme, that supposedly their term should end November 12. But upon the prudent request of the local government and our honorable representatives, per my information, it was extended by the NPC board to stay until the end of the year. So yun lang po yung ano. Now, what we have advised MECO is that while they are still receiving the capacity coming from NPC, they should start negotiating with the owner of the power plant so that this power plant can continue to operate and provide the gap. Pero policy maker lang si DOE, sir, hindi pwedeng directly intervene.
But Asik Mario,
Thank
with that, since the authority came from DOE to ask NPC to come in, as to the collection of NPC, does that still need the approval of ERC?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We cannot dispense of any UCME payments without any ERC approval.
Exactly. Specifically, when you entered, when NPC enters a certain area. I'm just looking at this situation mainly because if it happens in a different SPUG area, so we know how to go about, because like in Occidental Mindoro, it was requested from the DOE that they help with the problem. So as a solution, DOE asked NPC to come in and supply the needed power in the SPUG area of Occidental Mindoro. So upon coming in, it was decided that 10 megawatts was needed, although needed was more than 20 megawatts. That 10 megawatts, since NPC is going to pay for that, the cost of the fuel will be passed on to the consumers, but the question is the UCME. Definitely, when you come in, the fuel subsidy, the cost of power is really big, and that is why we add the UCME. Sir, ang question ko, then you have to apply with the ERC, tama? And then,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
so with that 10 megawatts, has NPC applied already with the ERC?
Not yet, Mr. Chair.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. So, in the meantime, baka maubusan kayo ng PC. Tama ba?
That is also true, Mr. Chair.
Yun.
That's the reason why we have a limited period to stay there. And fortunately, our board were able to understand the need to continue the operation, but only until this year, because we have no more allocation for 2023.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Redulme. So, looking at that, and looking at the statement of Asik Mario was saying the present power producer can be asked to provide the remaining power needed by Occidental Mindoro. But we also see the problem here. And what is the problem? The present producer, having no PSA, will have to ask for a petition in the ERC for the payment of that difference. And as we know, just like what happened in Oriental Mindoro during the pandemic, there's a pending application for 850 million. to Power One Corporation because of their emergency supply of the needed electricity. And if this is going to happen to Occidental Mindoro and we ask OMCPC to provide the emergency power, then for them to be able to collect specifically from the subsidy, then we need the approval of ERC. And looking at the Oriental Mindoro, 2 years has gone and no approval yet. So this is a very big problem. Although I see one of the solutions also for this would be OMECO to already start with the or already contract for the remaining now. And that's one of the things that we have to see. We have to, sorry, I'm taking control of the whole hearing, I'm sorry. But there's still other members who want to question. Honorable Tarriela, we can do a second round. One last question, or if we can allow, is it okay if we allow the other members to ask?
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Honorable Tarriela. At least I'm so sorry to the members, but I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it, mainly because napakagulo ng problema rito sa area ng Mindoro, and it's just now that we're getting clarity. And I don't want this happening to the other SPUG areas also. And at least we'll be able to come up with a solution in case something of the same happens. So can we hear from, you still have 5 interpellators. Can we hear from Honorable Ria Vergara? Ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very brief only. I'd just like to ask, I'd like first to thank the authors, Congressman Umali, Congressman Guintu, Congressman Tarriela, and Congressman Panaligan for bringing this to our attention. I think electricity is a basic human right, and it's so sad that there's still 10 to 12-hour brownouts. But one of the authors mentioned that this has been a decades-long problem. When you say decades, I mean since 2012, or is it only in the last 2 years or last year that you've had 10 to 12-hour rotational brownouts?
Three decades already.
3 decades, sir, where it's 8-hour brownouts every day, or just intermittent, like, 2 brownouts a month, but then just recently because of the problem with the increasing cost of fuel, it's become like 8-hour brownouts daily, or has it been like that for the last 3 decades?
Yeah, brownout for the last 3 decades, no? Sometimes 3-4 hours, but now it's more, I think since last May, since last May, we are experiencing 12 hours already.
Last May 2022, 2021.
2022.
2022. Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask, why is the ERC like that? There was a mention that the decision was made August 4, but it was only sent to them November 17. Why is there such a long lag? From the ERC?
Come again, ma'am. Sorry. August 4 decision
Was only released November 17. If I heard correctly, that was
can we ask ma'am, I'll ask ERC to comment. Attorney Ching, are you still there?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, I am. And thank you to Representative Vergara for that question. Actually, ma'am, the deliberation of the commission took place on August 4, 2022. And as early as the next preceding day, OMCPC was already sent a copy of the notice of resolution. So they were informed at least of the dispositive portion of what was agreed upon during the deliberation. So during the next day, they already received information of that, and we have that on record as well. What we received earlier this week was the lengthy discussions on the basis for the said dispositive portion or resolution, but they received information of the ruling as early as August 5, I think, Your Honors.
So when they receive it as early as August 5, they can already implement your decision?
Yes, Your Honors. Unfortunately, I think they filed after receipt of that August 4 notice of resolution. They opted to file another motion for clarification, again clarifying that resolution, which already resolved another motion for clarification. So it was basically a string of motions for clarification that the ERC had to resolve. But records will bear, Your Honors, that as early as the next day, they already received information of that resolution.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, because I think here the failure, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure you can share with us also how you were able to resolve the power issues in Marinduque, because it seems like it's the same problem. But I'm just sad because when I listen to all the resource speakers, there seems to be no remorse. I mean, it's like this thing happened and no one's to blame. And I think this is a problem that one, management. I mean, Congressman Umali mentioned that there's a conflict of interest. The general manager of the cooperative is supplying the fuel. I don't understand why an inquiry like this should reveal that. I mean, why NEA doesn't come in and suspend that general manager, why congressmen have to complain and even bring this up, you know, to the attention of national government, why the agencies are not acting and doing their job. Second, having run a power distribution utility and a generating facility, dapat there's planning. So I don't understand how it reached this point na umabot, Mr. Chair, ng 8 to 10 hour brownouts, and then the ERC naman, they're taking their sweet time, giving penalties. Don't you conduct hearings at the venue where the petitions are requested for PSA, so you can actually see on the ground what's happening? And you know, there are brownouts, so there's a sense of urgency, so you can give this top priority. Those are just the issues, Mr. Chair, and I'd really appreciate if you could share with us how you resolve the problems in Marinduque so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen to other areas in our countries. And I don't think the competitive selection process will work in Oriental Mindoro or Occidental Mindoro. What we need here is a negotiated bid. I mean, something that has a definite timeline. Because we're trying to push CSP across the board for all utilities in our country. And in cases like this, really, I think the NEA should go and look for generating companies. Bunker and diesel now, this is not ideal as baseload plants, especially with the increase of fuel cost, baka there'll be a shortage of supply. So we should be really looking at renewable energy. And Mr. Chair, I'm thinking of the solar para sa bayan, the one that we approved, Mr. Chair, in the 17th Congress. Why they're not investing here in these two areas that need them the most. That's all, Mr. Chair, but I believe really the management of the cooperative, either there's an intent really to create problems, and but the GM, that one that's supplying the fuel, that's a no-brainer, Mr. Chair. He has to go. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ma'am Ria. Definitely, we'll try to find ways and means to be able to solve the problems besetting the SPUG areas. And we're talking about 120 plus SPUG areas. So proceeding, let me hear from Representative Franz Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank that the committee for bringing this up. And of course, the author of the resolutions. Alam niyo po, Mr. Chair, I have experienced brownout dito sa sa Puerto Galera, Oriental, Mindoro, nung nagpunta ako 3 months ago. Kaya it's real. Kaya talagang feel na feel ko yung brownout talaga dito. At kung 3 decades yun at hindi pa masolusyonan, there's something wrong dito sa nangyayaring ito. Alam niyo po, dito sa Metro Manila, ma-brownout lang kami ng 2-3 oras, nagwawala na yung mga taong bayan. Lalo na kung tayo po ay naka-Zoom meeting. Ako, nagwawala na ako sa Meralco. Yes. Di pa ba magwawala yung mga tao sa Mindoro?
Ayun, nagwawala na.
Ayun na. Mr. Chair, nakikita naman natin yung how you dig up the problem, at nakita niyo naman na sinasabi niyo na kanina yung mga pwedeng solutions. Ako nakikita ko na rin yung mga pwedeng solutions. So, Mr. Chair, I can see a deadlock between the OMECO, NPC, and ERC parang kung hindi ba mababayaran itong 300 million na ito ay talagang ganun ang magiging
Situation.
process o ganun pa rin kasi sasabihin ng OMECO unfair sa kanila unfair sa kanila yung binibigay ng ERC na penalty. So hangga't hindi binabayaran ng OMECO yung penalty, so hindi rin mag-aano yung ERC. And we know that NPC will not pay then the 300 million ba yun sa OMECO unless mabayaran nila yung penalty. So Mr. Chair, kailangan natin i-resolve ngayon yan kung paano yung paano na magkakasundo kasi hindi pwedeng baka daldalan lang tayo dito pagdating ng panahon at natapos na itong hearing ay ganun pa rin yung situation. So may I ask ang NPC, ERC, Madam Mr. Chair, kung paano ito mas masusolusyonan?
Honorable Castro, you're talking about the 300 million, which is the 50% of the subsidy that is being asked by ERC that OMECO to pay
Yes. At
as
saka yung-
penalty, no?
Yes.
Am I
at saka
correct?
yung NPC na babayaran nila sa
I think NPC is to answer for the other half, no? For the UCME. So I think, ma'am, as to that, specifically because we lack time, and well, let's hear from ERC and NPC, but I believe we cannot finish this hearing today. I'll schedule another one in December or November, December 5, to be able to have a solution already.
Siguro meron na silang gagawin.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But definitely, I think with the 300 million 50% subsidy, that is still pending with the ERC. I think it was appealed by OMECO, no? As to the, and then we can ask ERC, specifically the chair, to attend and ask for her comments. How come such a stiff penalty was imposed on an electric cooperative who is non-profit?
Yes.
To be honest, I don't see that as very to impose such a stiff penalty on an electric cooperative, specifically that would be passed on to the member consumers of the said cooperative. So with that, can we hear from ERC first, Attorney Ching?
Your Honors, if I may, with regard to the issue of the 50-50 sharing of NPC and OMECO, of the difference between the TCGR and the SAGR, which was ruled on by the Commission previously, Your Honor, this is a matter that was already deliberated upon and resolved by the Commission. And in previous orders, in fact, I can name two as of the moment, and we have one that is already being expedited for promulgation. But I can cite specific provisions, particularly in our June 23, 2022 order. Page 27 of the same specifically provides, and Your Honors, please allow me to read from the said order. So in connection with the subject motion for reconsideration, well, the same is denied. Ito po yung in-MR po nila yung 50-50, what they call a penalty, but really, Your Honors, it's an imposition or a condition. The Commission clarified that if the rate that should have been applied from December 26, 2021 are the provisionally approved rates as cited above, yun pong sinasabi po nila na the 12 megawatts that were already provisionally approved by the Commission. So the difference, ito na po yung important portion of this order. The difference between the provisionally approved TCGR of OMCPC and OMECO's approved SAGR should then be fully recoverable from the UCME subsidy, considering that the capacity supplied by the NPP, in this case, Your Honors, OMCPC, arose out of supposedly validly executed contracts, which were a result of a successful CSP. In effect, Your Honors, I think the language is clear that the penalty has been effectively lifted because nandun na nga po sa text, should then be fully recoverable from the UCME subsidy. So in no point in the order na po na tinuloy pa po ng ERC yung ruling nila on the 50-50 sharing. And this is actually reinforced in the order of the Commission that was received earlier this week, ayun po dated August 4, 2022, wherein the Commission ruled, aside from the what applicable rate would be applied to the capacity above the 12 megawatts, yun pong 12 megawatts na po na may PA, yun pong above the 12 megawatts, the question really was what rate would apply. And in addressing that concern, the ERC clarified that it gave an alternative rate that will apply to that. I think it was pegged at the NPC Mamburao plant rate po. And again, the difference between that NPC Mamburao TCGR and the SAGR, again, very clearly stated by the ERC, should be recoverable from the UCME subsidy. So, Your Honors, you already have 2 orders clarifying na ang difference po between the TCGR and SAGR should be recoverable from the UCME. That effectively lifts that burden from the co-op, in this case, OMECO. But we are already in the process of finalizing. In fact, we expect the latest order to be promulgated very soon. Wherein hindi ko pa po alam if there would be need for further clarification. But I can read some salient portions of the said order.
No, okay na yan.
Ay, okay na po. Ay, sige po. Pero, ay, sorry, may overhear lang po ako. Somebody say na okay na. Pero just to, I guess, drive home the point. Ayan.
I think Honorable, before you continue, I think Honorable Castro has a few more questions.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
Sana ma-resolve na ito.
So, yes.
Ang mahalaga po dito, Mr. Chair, yung updating ng fuel subsidies, no, para ma-prevent na itong brownouts na ito na nangyayari. And of course, siguro solution na lang ito, Mr. Chair, para mas mapaiksikin na natin. So based doon sa mga narinig ko, itong CSP, so kailangan natin ng clear and timely direction on the power development. Tsaka magkaroon tayo ng CSP. So sabi ni Kong Salbami rito, napakahirap daw talaga magkaroon ng CSP. Totoo ba yun? Yung process, yung competitive selection. Kaya kailangan pa rin talaga nating magkaroon talaga ng ganito, no? Then, sabi nyo nga, Mr. Chair, it's about time to say goodbye with this missionary UCME, di ba? So it's about time na ma-reduce yung increasing missionary subsidy by relying less on the on the diesel. Natingin natin napaka-polluted at saka syempre alam naman natin na talagang itong mga at saka mahal, di ba? Kailangan siguro ng hybridization program. Kaya lang narinig ko kanina parang na-discourage ako, yung solar energy napakahirap din palang applyan nun at dami rin palang requirements. Kaya baka dapat din mag-ano rin tayo doon sa mga requirements. So that yung hybridization program natin, ng mga lalo-lalo na po, Mr. Chair, doon sa mga off-grid areas na sinisilbihan, kailangan natin ng solar, ano pa ba? Yung pwede sa Mindoro, biomass or mini hydro ba? O yeah, okay, na pwedeng gamitin natin. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, alam ko mayroon pa rin magtatanong, no, magkaroon ng, kasi nakita ko yung tinanong ko yung difference noong energy price na binabayaran ng consumers during nung nagpunta po ako doon, at lumaki pala. So lumaki, and yet yung kanilang power supply ay ganun ka inefficient. Kaya kailangan siguro mag-launch din ng energy efficiency and saving program in the off-grid areas para ma-reduce po yung yung consumption, at saka yung syempre magkaroon ng lalong-lalo na po sa mga household. So yun lang po yung mga natanong ko ko kasi. So yun lang po, Mr. Chair, yung may contribute natin para ma-solve natin yung problema natin sa brownout. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Franz Castro. As to ERC, we would be inviting you again to please attend December 5. Sana face-to-face na kayo with some of the commissioners or the chairman. And then, sorry, let's just finish the interpellators first. Proceeding, can we hear from DML Presley De Jesus?
Thank you, and to my colleagues and all to our resource persons. No? So siguro I'll just make a manifestation because all the questions that I wrote down, naitanong na lahat, no? Again, electricity is a basic right. Kailangan natin affordable, reliable, and continuous supply of electricity. Yan naman ang gusto natin mangyari. Be it in the provinces or be it in Metro Manila. So, nakakayaman sabihin that the provinces huling talaga pagdating sa tawag natin sa mga urban cities. So, siguro this good start na magkaroon tayo ng lalo sa probinsya, especially yung tinatawag natin STAG o para sa mga karamihan, yung Small Power Utilities Group, kung saan ito yung mga island, no? And NPC plays a vital role sa pagpapailaw nito. So, talagang nakakalungkot sa Urmeco, na hanggang ngayon hindi pa nasosolve. I heard 3 days, no? But I envy Marinduque, no? Kasi sa Marinduque, 100% yung kanilang supply ng NPC. Ang tanong ko sa NPC, Mr. Chair, bakit sa pag kinukulang ang supply sa Ormeco at sa Omeco, ano ang ginagawa nila? Dapat meron silang contingency plan na just in case hindi mag-deliver ang kanilang kaisa-isang power supplier, ay meron silang nakaantabay na genset para patakbuhin yan, para hindi naman magmalaki ang kaisa-isa nilang supplier. Mr. Chair?
Can we hear from NPC?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To clarify the role of NPC in the missionary area, Mr. Chair, as I've said, when NPC already leaves that area because there is already an NPP, it has no more role to provide any power generations there because it presumably has to pass the obligation to those NPPs in the area. Now, if the NPPs fail on their responsibility to provide the necessary power under the UPSA, NPs does not even automatically come in. As I've said, we need directive from our mother agency, the Department of Energy, for us to justify again government resources coming back there, considering that there are already private sector already supposedly working on those areas. So on the question that whether NPC should have available standby generator sets in the area, that could be costly, Mr. Chair. And we don't have enough funds to provide quick response generator sets for every SPAG areas. And especially that we are having problems with our finances. That is not possible unless the national government will have a specific policy and direction on this.
Mr. Chair, he said that it will be very costly, no? Kung maglalagay sila. Does he know that the most expensive electricity is having no electricity at all? So hindi niya pwede sabihin yan, no? Kasi dito, kagaya sabi natin basic rights. Is that same thing goes to Catanduanes? Di ba meron din pa power supplier din but you still had the genset there, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Attorney Ridulme.
Yes, that is also true in the Catanduanes province, Mr. Chair. We only have limited participation there in the sense that we have that mini hydro that adds small supply of electricity there. But basically, since there is already an NPP in the area, we're trying to pace out already the participation of the government there. And eventually, the NPP will take over the functions in the area.
Siguro, Mr. Chair, no, since we have a second committee hearing here, I just would like to have a manifestation, no, para we can move forward. I know there's a lot of more interpolators. If
Yes,
you
please
allow
proceed.
me, Mr. Chair, to make my manifestation.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I would like to thank the four congressmen, Congressman Umali, Congressman Guintu, Tarriela, and Panaligan. Actually, I've been talking to them during the budget deliberation, so we brought up this problem in Omeco and Ormeco. But the same, I think, Mr. Speaker, to all our honorable representatives and resource speakers, the short-term immediate solution must be born out of this hearing. I would also like to emphasize that this perennial problem that Mindoro and other off-grid islands had been facing could only be resolved by one thing: interconnection to the main grid. This is what EPIRA has envisioned. Yan po yung sinasabi ni Atty. Janine Di Kalingan ng PRECA na ito po yung masusolve, no? Through interconnection or submarine cable. In the legislature, we have been taking steps to address the shortcomings of EPIRA or its implementation. We passed the Microgrid Systems Act, thanks to Chairman Velasco and of course Chairman Mike Arroyo back then for pushing this Microgrid Systems Act. That is primarily intended to spur the microgrid development in the unserved and underserved areas nationwide. There are pending bills in the 19th Congress aiming to help off-grid islands get access to more stable supply, as well as involve the government in adding generation capacity to augment what we have right now. Mr. Chair and members of this committee, it is not accurate to only look at the distribution side when faced with crisis in electricity supply, such as this. We have an entire system to check. Alam ko pong masalimuot na sitwasyon ito sapagkat hindi konektado ang Mindoro sa main grid. This is the primary reason why the distribution utilities are not able to have a wide variety of options when contracting power supply. On the distribution side, I know firsthand that this problem will not be solved overnight. I hope the NEA or the NEA plays a more active role in addressing the problems raised today. And I would like to reiterate what Congressman Umali said. The politics played a vital role po rito, no? Once po pinasukan po ng politika ang mga electric cooperatives, ay talaga ho magkakawindang-bindang. Look what happened to Beneco, to Aleco, Mindoro, Paleco, ang dami po. Let the NEA, let the electric cooperatives po, pabayaan po natin kung sino po ang magaling na GM ang ilagay dyan. Qualified na GM po, no? There's a lot of parameters to be a good GM, to be a good acting GM, or even sending a PS a GM po, no? May mga parameters po yan. Kailangan po, active kayo, at least may 5 years experience po. With that, Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po. And looking forward for the December 5 committee hearing again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable De Jesus. Proceeding, can we hear from Honorable Sergio Dago?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apology for being late because I was there in the Committee on Public Works. Because of the bill being deliberated, will amend the compensation of relocating the poles. We will no longer be compensated, kaya nagtutok po ako doon. Napakalaking problema po yun kung may ano.
And we would want to thank Honorable Dago for standing up for the electric cooperatives. Thank you, Sir Dago.
So, good afternoon na pala, no? Diretso ko na lang to sa mga observation ko, yung batas sa batas. A while ago, I was listening. The NPC is telling this committee that they stop providing power supply or generating power supply in this area because of the NPP's presence. Can I ask NPC, ano pong basis ng Department of Energy na pag may NPP, aalis na kayo? Pagkakaalam ko kasi, the only condition that you will cease operating in the SPAG area is for that area to be interconnected to the grid. Section 70, Article 14 of the IRR.
Yes, who'd want to answer? DOE or Attorney Ridulme? Nagtuturuan yung dalawa. Let's hear from both.
Yun muna.
Let's start
kasi
with
nag-pull out
NPC.
na kayo.
Yes, let's listen to Attorney Ridulme.
we have several guidance coming from the DOE, Mr. Chair, on circulars that govern the entry of the new power providers and the system of getting out in the area through a pacing pace out arrangement. Now, in the particular case of Mindoro, we already executed the pacing pace out. And the premise there is that since there is a PSA already contracted by the new power providers that supposedly covers the supply of electricity that is formerly NPC's role. So that's the idea.
Mr.
That's the
Chair,
idea,
so
Mr. Chair.
interject no for the interest of time. Kasi ako mismo, wala pa kong pananghalian, no? Tinitiis ko lang yung gutom ko just for the sake of this problem. Are you telling this representation and to the committee that a mere circular of the Department of Energy can amend that particular provision of an existing law? Kasi sinabi nyo, the basis is circular. Malinaw po ang Section 70 at saka yung IRR. Pwede lang kayong mag-pull out doon sa isang SPAG area if it is already interconnected to the grid. That is a very clear precondition because Section 70 is there. I can remember when Section 70 was deliberated because I am a member of the technical working group representing Amreco and AGMEC. Marami pong total sa Section 70 dahil sa universal charge. However, in the course of the deliberation, pag hindi ilagay yung Section 70, EPERA, that particular provision of EPERA will become unconstitutional because it will violate the equal protection clause of the Constitution. While the mainland, the grid consumers are enjoying the 24/7 with lower cost of electricity, the other half of the Filipinos living in the isolated islands will be having only a lesser number of hours of electricity and higher cost of rent. That's why Section 70 is there to cure the violation of the equal protection clause of the Constitution. And the only way that Section 70 will no longer be operational in the area where they are operating now is the precondition that the area is already interconnected to the grid. That's why we have filed a resolution to that effect in the 18th Congress. Bakit hindi pa na-interconnect yung malaking area, yung malaking island ng Mindoro at saka Palawan? They are eating almost 60% of the UCMA. Pag na-interconnect yan, ma-free up yung UCMA doon sa mga maliliit na island kagaya ng Hulo-Solo, Tawi-Tawi at eventually marireduce yung UCMA. Hindi kasi in-interconnect. Ang laki-laki yung load na yan. So, that is, again, Mr. Chair, I know may mga dahilan yung DOA, but this representation would like to state for the record that the law is very clear. You can only cease operating in the area, in the SPAG area, if that area is already interconnected to the grid. And that law cannot be amended by an issuance of a circular. Now, for the ARC, Mr. Chair, linawin ko lang yung sinabi kanina doon sa mga orders na nilabas na the difference between the TCGR and the SAGR should be collected from the consumers. Are you telling that under that particular case, there is an under recovery? May I ask ERC if that is an under recovery? Because you have a role that every 3 years, the electric operatives and other distribution utilities will file an OU or over and under recovery. Refund if it is over, recover if it is under. Are you, did you consider that particular amount as under recovery, Mr. Chair?
Attorney Ching, if you can answer the question of Honorable Dago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon po, Congressman Dago, who I think the ERC has closely worked with during his time as GM for a few of our electric cooperative friends. Kong, ang clarification po of the ERC kanina, I think what was read, I read verbatim from the orders that we issued, is that the difference between the TCGR and the SAGR shall be fully recoverable from the UCME subsidy. Yun po ang naging ruling ng commission, and wala po siyang i-collect from the consumers. The member consumers will still only be accountable to pay for the SAGR, the ERC approved SAGR.
So there is no under recovery.
That is up to the filing po ng mga cooperatives ng kanilang over-under recovery, pero as far as the difference between the approved TCGR and the SCGR are concerned, sa UCME po siya kukunin.
So meaning, Mr. Chair, ang co-op mismo ang magbabayad ng amount na yan is am I correct to that, Mr. Chair?
Attorney Ching?
Just to clarify po, this is really the amount that the law provides should be collected from the UCME subsidy. The difference between the approved TCGR and the SAGR po will be collected from the UCME subsidy and not from the consumers.
Okay, so si NPC ngayon ang magbabayad from the UCME. So ito na, may pambayad ba kayo? Kasama ba yan sa latest filing ninyo, Mr. Chair, NPC? Kasama ba yung amount na yon doon sa latest filing ninyo petition? Kasi hindi na kami mag-oopos.
Attorney Dulme.
To be frank about it, Mr. Chair, hindi pa namin na-file yung amount na yon because that is just a recently approved ERC requirement for UCME payments. What we do is every year we file our UCME requirements at the first quarter or the last quarter of the years for the next year. So probably this could be included by next year, but it doesn't mean we're not going to pay them. If we have allocations still that are available to pay them, we do that. But as I've said, since we are having short funding for the UCME rate lately, it may not be paid on the assumption that they have the complete documentation, Mr. Chair.
So in short, Mr. Chair, there is willingness to pay on the part of Napocor through the UCME. So maybe pag-usapan na lang siguro, Mr. Chair, ng NPC, ng co-op at nung NPP, baka po pwede na na ituloy lang nila yung kahit hindi pa nakabayad doon sa sinisingil nila. Anyway, babayaran naman ng NPC dahil malinaw naman yung order na it shall be charged to the UCME. Ipapile naman nila yon sa ERC para naman magkaroon na ng supply yung kung may rotational burnouts man or load shedding, at least mababawasan ng ilang oras. That's one of the recommendations that for the record I am recommending to the committee. And another is that I hope Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the Department of Energy to kindly revisit that circular na kapag may NPP na, papaalisin ninyo si NPC because that is a violation of Section 70. So, maybe give some other time before you pull out the power plant there ng NPC SPAG. Kung stable na talaga yung NPP, saka kayo mag-pull out. Kasi in the case of dinagat.
Pero Honorable Nagok, if that's your reasoning, kung stable na, you're still violating the law. They can only get out pag naka-interconnect na sila sa grid. So let's just stick to that until and when the SPAG area is connected to the grid. That should be the only time NPC
will cease.
Oh,
because that's the law. Section 70 nga yan. Ang yung lang nila, Mr. Chair, ang problema din nila, kulang yung budget nila na binibigay natin sa GAA plus lumalaki at lumalaki yung UCMA. I am a witness in every hearing kasi nag-a-appear kami. Kasi may island din ako, yung dinagat, 100% NPC. Wala akong problema. Dahil 100% yung kontrata ko NPC, hindi ako kumukontrata sa NPP kasi alam ko na yung consequences. So, yung provision, yung dalawang recommendation, Mr. Chair, yan po yung nire-recommend ko sa committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dagok, and that's specifically why we still have stable electricity. It's because we also don't have an NPP. And what is your rate? Oy. Baba na, natalo ko na. Hindi, just kidding. We're okay. Thank you, Honorable Dagok. Can we now hear from the last interpellator? Can we now hear from Honorable Luistro?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, our fellow members of this committee, and of course to our resource speakers. Of course, I join our distinguished colleagues in our intention to say goodbye to UCME. But of course, this will take time. So may this representation be enlightened. I understand that UCME is intended to support SPAG areas, the NPPs. May we be enlightened on how do we determine the amount of subsidy that we provide to NPPs?
Okay, can we hear from DOE or NPC? Si Asik Mario muna. Si Asik Mario.
If I may, Mr. Chair, of course, the final determination of the UCME rests on the jurisdiction of the Energy Regulatory Commission. But it is the National Power Corporation that first do the arithmetic or the calculations because they base their filings on what was approved by the ERC pertaining to the true cost of generation and subsidized approved generation rates. So yun po yung mga basis. However, we recognize po na kahit hindi magpalit yung UCME rate, dahil alam naman natin na nagkakaroon na ng progress sa mga off-grid areas natin, like for example, Mindoro. In fact, ang isa sa reasons na nagkakaroon tayo ng problema ngayon sa Mindoro is because there was great increase in the demand in those islands. There was progress, marami ng development. So kahit hindi po magbago yung rate ng UCME, nagbaballoon because of the kilowatt hour consumed. So yun po yung ano. In that sense po, nag-initiate po ang Department of Energy in trying to look at ways and avenues on how to rationalize the UCME. Kasi sa ngayon po, kung titingnan natin, isang rate lang. So that means, yung ordinary household consumer nagbe-benefit with the same benefit ng isang commercial building owner. Wow. So yun yung nagiging rational ngayon. So doon po kami nagbubuhat kung saan pinipilit naming mag-study on how to rationalize the UCME. So meron kaming in-establish ng mga parameters para naman marami kasi ang impression UCME para sa off-grid lang. Pero ang impact ko kasi nung paglaki ng UCME nasa ating consumers dito sa grid. Mas marami lang tayo nagko-contribute kaya maliit nating nakikita. So of course, interconnection is the main response para dun sa UCME natin. But in the meantime, we really have to look into yung rationalization. Kagaya po nung ginawa natin sa Murang Kuryente Act, yung extension natin nila. Kasi ang dinefine na natin kung sino talaga yung lifeline customers. Unlike before, kahit sino considered lifeline. So ganun din sana yung direction nung pag-i-study namin. Hindi lahat ng porque ganito yung consumption, dapat nagbe-benefit ng full dun sa UCME. So yun po yung on the part of the Department of Energy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Noted on that, Mr. Chair. I hope we can hear more insights from the ERC and then the determination of subsidy of UCME being extended to our NPPs. And earlier, I heard the NPC made representation that it is the increase in fuel price in the world market that causes delay in the payment of UCME to our NPPs. Is that correct, Mr. Resource Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The increase in the fuel prices increase the cost of the operation and increase the requirement for UCME subsidy payments. And if we would be more particular about it, Mr. Chair, but in the case of NPC, its fuel supplier, we are paying around 37 in the first quarter. It ballooned up to 80, more than twice the amount. So the volume that we can only buy now lessened because of the available budget allotted for that fuel. The same is true with the problem of the other NPPs. And their requirement for NPP subsidies also increased because of their cost of operation also increased. That's the reason why as early as July, we already give them notice that we will be having delays and some problems in the payment for the subsidies. But as I've said a while ago, Mr. Chair, we were lucky to have a support from our principals, and we were able to at least ease the gap of funding deficit, so that, as I've said, we are only about 2 or few months delayed already in the subsidy payments. Last month, we were able to pay substantial amount to the NPPs. So, but as I've said, it's still insufficient. We are still asking continuous petitions, approval of our petitions with the ERC, and some stopgap measure like our loan applications with the other government banks, given the authority already given, recognized by the DOJ.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I know this is quite factual, but may we be enlightened as well. Prior to the dramatic increase of fuel price in the world market, how much universal charge do we collect? And how much UCME are we supposed to pay to our NPPs? And as a follow-up question, at the height of the increase of fuel in the world market, how much is our collection of universal charge, and how much are we required to pay as UCME?
Attorney Dulme?
Mr. Chair, can I provide the information later? We don't have the correct detailed computation here. I might be citing different rates. So
If that would be
our
acceptable to Honorable Luistro?
Definitely, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable
Thank you,
Luistro.
If I may proceed, Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
until we abandon the very mandate of EPERA law, I think the CSP will always be an essential element of our power supply. So may we know the basic qualifications of NPPs before they are allowed to join the CSP? And what recommendatory qualifications can we suggest to ensure that the winning bidder is competent enough to provide power services?
Can we hear from Nea?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Actually, the very basic is first, the electric cooperatives should submit their power supply procurement plan to NEA for review. And then once it has been accomplished and reviewed and posted to the portal of DOE and NEA, they may now proceed to the selection of their third-party back or TP back. And then this TP back and the technical working group will collaborate in the formulation of their terms of reference. So here we start from the PSPP, and now we have our terms of reference. After that, this will again be reviewed by NEA and DOE. And actually, we have our joint review with the DOE. And in the case of those under the SPA areas, we also NPC also participate in the joint review. And then after which, then once this
Chair?
has been approved,
With all due respect, I understand that there is a tedious process to be able to conclude a CSP, but my concern is in terms of capacity to provide power supply.
yes.
What do we specifically require from the NPPs for them to qualify to join
Yes,
the
ma'am.
CSP?
That is what I'm driving at, ma'am. They need to have the power supply procurement plan and the terms of reference wherein the requirements should be reflected in those documents, ma'am.
Perhaps the more specific question, Mr. Chair, is do we require certain financial capacity from the NPPs for them to become qualified to join the CSP? Because we do not want to anticipate a situation that they will be joining the CSP, they will be awarded with the contract, and then they will be relying on the NPC in sustaining their obligation to supply power to SPAG areas. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If
Ma'am?
I may.
Yes, please proceed.
So actually there is here bidders qualification. This is part of the circular, attached to the circular, under 13, provided under 13.1, all forms of business organizations, including joint ventures, are encouraged to participate in the bidding process subject to applicable government licenses and permits. And then down the line, 13.2, bidders using indigenous and RE power plants, the bidder must comply with the constitutional requirement for ownership. And next one is the capacity offer of the bidder must be compliant with all the ownership limitations prescribed under EPIRA. And lastly, for new power suppliers, the qualification shall be based on the experience and competence of its personnel to manage and operate the plant, and acceptability of its operational management plan during technical bid evaluation, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, this is a manifestation. I hope that we can be more specific in imposing the financial qualification or requirement that needs to be presented by the NPPs before they are allowed to join the CSP. That is a manifestation, Mr. Chair. And if I may proceed, this is addressed to NEA. Earlier, they mentioned that the frequency and duration of power shortage in Oriental Mindoro has normalized. May we be enlightened, what do you consider as normal in terms of frequency and duration of power outage?
Yes, Ms. Ruth.
Okay, if I may, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Actually, we are, the electric cooperatives were assessed in the SIFI-SIDI measures, wherein for SIFI, which is the frequency indicator of the power outage, is 15 to 25 times. That is the standard in the index, and for SIDI is 2025 to 3,375 minutes. So those are the standard indices for the frequency and duration.
Mr. Chair, if I may intervene, is it per month, per year?
Per year, ma'am. So as of July, that's what we were discussing earlier, that June and July, it is not yet normal because POC was not able to provide the required 9 megawatts, and they can only provide the 1.4 megawatts. So there was really a power shortage that time. So in July, the SIFI is 27.57, wherein the standard is 15 to 25 times only. Now the SIDI, which is the duration, is 4,077 minutes, and the standard is 3,300 up to 3,375. Now, on August 5, there was a conducted procurement of emergency power. So it runs down to, it was reduced to, from 27, the SIFI was reduced to 16.87, and the SID was reduced to 1,957 compared to the 4,077. And September, again, it was also reduced to 10, the SIFI to 10.86, and the SID again reduced to 1,132, and now it is normalized, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, do we have a standard number of hours in terms of frequency and standard number of minutes in terms of duration applicable to all SPAG or even on-grid areas? Kasi po malimit yung brownout sa amin. So I am really curious if it is still within the normal or otherwise.
Mr. Chair, point of information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Dago.
Hindi kasi accurate yung SIP eliminate natin.
Yan.
Kasi ang SIP is not a report of the electric co-op. Kung yung cost kasi ng power interruption ay hindi sa distribution, hindi po ibibilang yon. In this case, planta kasi walang supply. Kaya, in the case of the grid, kung NGCP, hindi ibibilang yon. Ang ibibilang lang sa co-op, sa distribution, sa DSIP, yung kanya. Halimbawa, nasira yung linya, may fault, kaya kaya may number of consumers dyan. Sa last column, may number of consumers kung isolated. In this case, planta, power supply, hindi bibilang yon.
Di total natin. Distribution at planta.
Ibang pero yung standard ng SIP sa grid at saka sa SPAG, pare-pareho po yon.
So, Mr. Chair, for us to say whether our power outage is still normal or otherwise, what should be the parameter, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Ruth?
Yes, we stick to the parameters of as approved by ERC, which is the 15 to 25 times for SIFI and SID 2025 to 3,375 minutes.
Noted on that, Mr. Chair. And this representation, Mr. Chair, is from Batangas. And I noted that there are areas where the supplier is Batelec 2, an electric cooperative. But in Batangas City, it's Meralco. And apparently, cost-wise, mas mura po ang Meralco compared to Batelec 2. And I'm curious about the supplier in the district of Congressman Gook, because I would really want to avail of the cheapest power supply that I can bring home.
Ma'am, I think Attorney Ridulme is here. I'm just kidding.
I wish to ask Mr. Chair, what is wrong about Meralco supplying electricity as well in the rest of the areas of Batangas province? Why only in Batangas City? Why only in a limited portion of the municipality of San Pascual? And the rest has to be taken care of by Batelec 2.
Can we ask Mario?
Yeah. Ma'am, the issuance of the appropriate franchise in all areas in the Philippines is granted to Congress. So Congress po yung magde-decide. So in the case po nung sa Meralco nando sa Batangas City, it's a franchise application approved by the Congress.
Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, then I am invoking Section 70 as presented by Congressman Dagook. And let this representation invite as well Napocor to supply in our legislative district, Batangas 2nd District, most especially in our island municipality in Tingloy. That is all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, there being no other interpellators, but Honorable Dago, of course, please proceed.
Very brief point of information. Kaya nga, magkaiba yung taripa ng private DEOs at saka electric co-op, alam to ng ERC, supposed to be kayo ang magsagot eh. Because of consumer density, Mr. Chair, and the sales. Halimbawa dito sa Metro Manila, yung 100 meters na linya nila, nakakabit yung isang mall, ang cost niyan sa operation and maintenance, isang meter reader, ilang minuto lang i-reading, milyones yung nakolekta nila. Wala silang i-maintain na linya na dumadaan sa mga kakahuyan, mga niyugan na kiniklearing nila. Pag nagbagyo, hindi po natumbayan dahil malalaking building dito, hindi siya vulnerable. So, ang sales niya malaki, maliit, masyadong maliit yung overhead, yung operation and maintenance. Ngayon, pag i-take over ng Meralco, for example, yung area ng mga electric co-op na may mga malalayong barangay, may mga malalayong sityo, in every kilometer, 15 consumer, ang konsumo 50 kilowatt-hour lifeline, ay tataas yung rate. Kaya noon, bago nagkaroon ng electric co-op, sa Metro Manila, highly urbanized center lang ang mga nagninegosyo ng kuryente dahil hindi sila profitable doon sa mga area. Kaya PD 269 was there to solve the rural electrification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Last question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Curious lang po. How true is it na one of the causes of power outage ay may kumapit na butike o kabag dun sa wire ng kuryente?
Ma'am, kahit ako sasagutin ko yan, totoo yan, ma'am.
Noted on that, Mr. Chair.
Ma'am, kasi as much as possible for all rural electrification, we would want insulated wires. The problem is hindi insulated lahat, so it's all out in the open. Plus, we would want underground wiring just to be able to protect. Kaya lang hindi po talaga. Kasi ma'am, in Marinduque, when I was young, pag brownout, may sisigaw na kapitbahay, palapan ng nyug na naman. So, true enough, it's true pala talaga na basta tamaan lang ng palapa, ng branch, ang mga wires ng distribution utility, talaga nagtitrip na yung mga power plants natin. And that's the reason. Although we would want our electric cooperatives to build better after a certain typhoon, it really takes a lot of money. And that's one of the reasons, ma'am, na pinasa rin namin dito sa committee back in the 17th Congress, yung e-surf namin, to be able to help those areas na tinatamaan ng bagyo. So with that, yes, ma'am, ma'am. Yes, please, last one.
You. How come you are able to keep NPC in Marinduque?
Ma'am, just like Honorable Dagook, I gave the answer already because we do not have NPP. You should not have allowed the NPP. Although it's the policy of DOE that all SPAG areas should already conduct their CSPs. But we have tried, but as to the island province of Marinduque, ma'am, which I think Philreca has also said it as a solution, which I saw also as a solution to the power problem. We need interconnection. And that is why the island province of Marinduque has already a petition with the ERC for interconnection to the main grid. And I believe all the other island provinces should have that. And I was discussing with on the side with ASEC Mario, I think DOE is already looking into interconnecting all the SPUG areas. And I believe that would be able to answer a lot of the problems that is besetting our island provinces. So I guess we have consumed so much time already. I believe that we have not fully tackled everything. So definitely.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Yes. Wait, before that, yes, Honorable Tarriela first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last question, no, for ERC. Kasi medyo lumayo na yung discussions. No? And for Attorney Ching, no? Attorney Ching is there, still there. So, yung decision ng 50% penalty, kailan ho kaya nyo mailalabas? Kasi At tingin ko, yan na lang yung solusyon, no? Doon sa ongoing brownout doon sa Mindoro ngayon, no? Kailan nyo mailalabas yung decision?
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chair, and also thank you to Kong Tarriela for the question. And I've already met him, in fact, in a few of our meetings and dialogues with the local government of Occidental Mindoro. Kong Tarriela, as I've mentioned earlier, this is already being expedited at the moment. Unfortunately, I cannot commit or make promises, but sige po, as soon as we end this meeting, I will personally ensure that the status be followed up, and hopefully we will get to have it promulgated within the week. Pero yun nga po, our previous orders that have already been promulgated and issued, sent to the parties were already pretty clear. But just to make sure that no stones are left unturned, we will make sure that this September 21, 2022 order will be promulgated as soon as possible. Ideally pa within the week. Ideally, but again, I do not want to make promises that I cannot keep, pero I will personally exert efforts to have it promulgated within the week, hopefully.
Yeah, end of the week tomorrow.
Thank you, Attorney Ching, but end of the week is already tomorrow.
Oo nga po. I realize that. Nonetheless,
Ching,
I
mahirap
will.
walang kuryente, no? Alam mo naman,
Opo, yes,
tatlong
Kong Tarriela,
oras walang
opo.
kuryente, mahirap.
Yes, sir. I'm well aware of the problems also dun po sa province niyo, and we've discussed this a number of times. Pero sige po, kakumustahin ko po ang mga bosses ko para po dito, and we will make sure to have it promulgated as soon as possible.
All right, thank you, Attorney Ching, and thank you, Honorable Tarriela. Seeing that it's already 1:30, just like to acknowledge the presence also of Honorable Anthony Godes Jr. and Honorable Dimsor M. Sali, and after hearing all the issues and concerns of the resolutions, I believe that one hearing is not enough. Definitely in December 5, we will have another hearing on this issue, because it not only affects Mindoro, but all the SPUG areas. And for the next hearing, we'd want to invite not only Ormeco, but also Omeco to be here, physically present, and also ERC to be physically present here in Congress. So to all our resource persons and stakeholders, I would like to thank you all for your precious time and for enlightening the committee as to the problems besetting the big island provinces of Oriental and Occidental Mindoro. And to all my members who participated, thank you very much. So before we proceed to the favorite motion, is there any other concern that any of our members would like to raise? If there is none, can we hear our favorite motion?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Seconded, Mr. Chair.
It has been moved and seconded that the meeting be adjourned. There being no objection, the hybrid meeting of the Committee on Energy is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and God bless.